Hello, this is the TradeSite US Stocks and Futures Market Preview for Wednesday, the 27th of May, 2020. Hope you had a good trade day. Well, it wasn't that exciting. We made some money in futures. We made some good money in Forex. Stocks were not that interesting. We gapped up, headed lower. The NASDAQ side was much more negative than the broad market. The broad market really didn't do much. We'll look at that overall in a few minutes. Just look at the ES front month futures contract. The daily chart of the broad market futures form as we head towards a 13 sell signal here. Got 12 now. We're working on 12. We'll look at the S&P in a minute. Let's go through the major daily charts. Crude oil down 7 cents at 34.28. Gold down $7.70. The S&P cash gains 36.32. Now note there's a 13 sell signal already in place here, and we did gap up and close lower. So we're still under the risk line of that. We're still in the control of that 13 sell signal. The bigger noise to me, this was okay to watch, but the bigger thing to me was the NASDAQ 100, which gapped up over 100 points. Now remember, this has that 13 sell signal on the daily from last, let's call it Thursday, I think it was. And then we gap up like 100 something points, but we closed down 24. So completely gave back the entire day up here as we operate under this 13 sell signal. So this is really, really interesting to watch. And again, we're still up near highs, but with that sell signal in place, you talk about a V bottom, but this is the point where if we fail and roll over here, maybe it's a W bottom, and that takes us back to the lows. The SOX down, up 18.20, Biotech's down 80.31. S&P, I'm sorry, the Russell 2000 gains 37, so the first time for a breakout here on the small caps in a while. The VIX loses 0.15, still closes above the risk line from the 13 buy signal. Trend closes at 1.11. NASDAQ volume, 4.4 billion shares. That's the heaviest volume we've seen. And keep in mind, this is the NASDAQ, which gapped up 100-something points and closed down 25. Heaviest volume in a while here on the NASDAQ. Advanced decline ratio on the NASDAQ was plus 1357, so more stocks were up than down, and by quite a bit, despite the fact that the NASDAQ closed negative. Advanced decline ratio on the New York was plus 1994. That's positive by a lot. Google gains $8 and change. Now is a 12 towards a 13 sell signal. We're seeing a lot of these sell signals line up. Apple ran into the static trend line. That's the green line to the penny almost. So gapped up, ran into that trend line, and then closed down $2.16. Netflix down $14.55. Amazon down $15.02. Tesla gains $1.99. Been pretty flat lately, but they're well, we'll see. By the way, there's a short setup. What was I just looking at? I'll find it in a bit. I believe it was in Tesla. Facebook down $2.71. Goldman Sachs gained $16.13. No, it was in NVIDIA I was looking at. Look at this. This setup here. This is going to be really interesting. Tomorrow we'll have to keep an eye on it. But it's got a big high range base, but it's heading down with a 13 sell signal on the 65-minute chart, and there's a gap to fill below. So that should be interesting. TLT, the 20-year bond ETF, down $2.22. But again, Goldman Sachs up 16. Look at that. That's the biggest day in Goldman in quite a while. All right, in terms of intraday action, so you can see Thursday's close. Friday, which was flat with options, or not with options expiration, but heading into the long weekend. Monday, there's this half day of futures trading. You can see there's no volume. Nobody's here for it. So that doesn't even usually count. So the gap up here is huge. It's 70 points on the S&P. But the opening candle was the high of the day. It was a pretty boring day. We had a little pullback early. Thought things might get a little negative, and then they weren't. That's what killed us on the Costco trade. And then just dead flat. And it's not until the last 30 minutes that things start to do whatever they did here. Meanwhile, the NASDAQ side, look at this, though. This is what the story I was telling you. Gapped up, came back down, didn't quite fill the gap. By the way, that low on that first move down, which has the 9th bar of the startup phase at the low of that move down was the value area high. Then we bounced a little bit, and then we filled the gap and went lower and closed negative. So that's pretty darn interesting, generally speaking. All right. So it's a short week, obviously, with the holiday that we had on Monday. In terms of economic data, on Wednesday, we've got the Richmond Manufacturing Index at 10 a.m. Eastern Time and the Fed Beige Book at 2 p.m. A lot of data ahead still on Thursday and Friday. We will talk about that for the market preview for that Thursday, which will be the wrap-up for the week from that perspective. Just keep in mind one thing. Friday is end-of-month Friday in summer. usually typically a boring day. So I may or may not trade much on Friday, but we'll see what it looks like. Charts as usual, brought to you by eSignal. If you've not yet taken the trial of our services, feel free to do so. We will help you out for a couple of weeks. Have a great trading Wednesday.